Hey,
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Doing all right, all things considered.
Good. It's nice to see you.
You too. You
I'm
too.
supposed
I don't see very many folks being where I'm at these days. So this is great. I really appreciate you doing this.
good. I'm supposed to tell you that Morgan Eve Swain says hello.
Hello, Morgan Eve.
Yeah, talked to her a little bit earlier today. These make Sundays go by really fast.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's what, 11 till 5 or 6 or something?
Yeah, the last one starts at 5, so 11 till
Oh,
5:30 or so. Yeah.
good.
Well, why don't you start us off by telling us who you are, where you are, and what you do?
So my name is Brian Carroll. I am in a town called Corinth in rural Vermont. I used to live just south of Boston, so that's kind of where home has been for me up until about 4 years ago. The claim to fame is I live in the town that Beetlejuice, the movie, was shot in. Um, that's about it though. We don't have traffic lights or stores or anything like that. It's really rural. I am a filmmaker. I'm a photographer, a wannabe woodworker. And if you asked me 4 years ago, I probably would have said a singer-songwriter, but lately I'm more so just the gun for hire. I play upright bass and mandolin and guitar with a bunch of different folks up here. And how most people probably know me is I'm the founder of the online music publication Redline Roots.
Fantastic. That's probably how I know you, right?
Yeah, yeah, I think we can blame that one on Zach and in Maple.
Yeah, they're
But I
getting a lot of credit for these Sunday chats from introducing me to a lot of people. So,
Yeah, and the other one we probably met in person at Newport. I'm sure that's been a big connection for folks as well.
yeah, that's
Uh,
definitely a theme that's come up. So before we get into how you're spending your time during all of this, do you want to tell me what you've been listening to?
Yeah, I mean, sadly, this past week, a lot of Prine, as I'm sure a lot of other folks have been doing. But I didn't really dig into his most recent record, which was from 2018, I believe, when it first came out. And so I've been listening to that a lot of older stuff. I actually play occasionally with this guy named Jim Rooney, who is a producer, an older gentleman who's a producer in Nashville, and he produced Aimless Love of John Prine's. He's produced a bunch of stuff for Nancy Griffith and um, Towns. He worked on a Towns record, so I don't know why he's playing with me, but I count my blessings. He's got some stories that are pretty cool to hear when we get together.
I'll bet.
A lot of instrumental stuff. I don't I don't know if I have the mental capacity these days to really digest deep, meaningful lyrics for the most part. But I've been listening to a lot. Bobby Britt has a beautiful record called Delay that he released about 2 years ago. Um, Andrew Marlin from Mandolin Orange released one of my favorite records. It's all instrumental tunes a couple of years ago as well, so I've been digging into those. And I've also been revisiting Carolyn Spence's. I mean, this is going against saying I'm listening to just instrumental stuff. Carolyn Spence's Spades and Roses. And now my dog is trying to get in the room. We'll let him in, I guess. Yeah, but really, that's kind of been it. I've also been spending a lot. It's sugaring season up here in Vermont, so I've been spending a lot of time listening to whatever my sugaring partner wants to listen to. So it's a lot of like Cracker and Van Morrison and the Stones and stuff like that. Petty, classic rock type stuff,
Cool.
which is great.
Talk to me a little bit about sugaring. Is that on your property? Like how? Tell me about it. I know nothing about how that works.
Yeah, so we basically, a friend of ours had this sugar house on his property that his stepson kind of let go to shit about I don't know 10 years ago or so, and we 2 years ago we approached him and said, hey, would you be cool if we kind of brought it back to life, and we bought a bunch of new pans and retapped all the lines and did all that kind of stuff, and so we've been doing it the past 2 years. And it's basically just you really have to get along with the person that you are doing it with, because you spend a lot of time alone just sitting there. It's like watching paint dry, waiting for sap to boil and turn into syrup, and it's a lot of work for not a lot of yield. So it's like 40 gallons of sap equals 1 gallon of maple syrup.
Yeah, I have a friend who lives about an hour and a half from here who has 25 acres or so, and they do it too, but the yield is so small.
Yeah,
for the
yeah.
amount of work. So
But
how
it's, I
many
mean,
how many gallons do you end up getting in a season?
we do this year. We're going to do about 35, 40 or so. So it's like we didn't really enter into it ever thinking it was going to be anything that we made money off of. It's really just a very expensive hobby that you spend a lot of time in February and March, sinking time and effort into. But it's, I mean, it's cool. People around the neighborhood come by and, they come in and hang out, and it's a lot of fun. It's very Vermont, I guess.
So there's a social kind of community component to it.
Certainly, yeah. I think that was my biggest thing. My biggest hesitance really about when my wife and I decided to move up here was I was leaving this community that I had become so ingrained in Cambridge, and also by extension, I guess, Providence and even further, Nashville. But up here, we found a totally different sense of that community. It used to be I'd get a call on a Tuesday and someone would say, "Hey, can you come sit in at this table session we're having, or come play mandolin at this gig or whatever?" And up here, it's like, "Hey, can I borrow your tractor? Or can you help me, slaughter my flock of animals for the year?" So it's definitely different, but it's that same kind of mentality of community and helping each other out, which is really wonderful.
Yeah, and that's what I look for in any given situation, the community that coalesces around whatever the environment is that you're in.
Yeah, sure.
So other than maple sugaring right now, how else are you passing the time? Because you're pretty isolated where you are.
Yeah, I mean, and I feel really guilty saying this because so many people are hurting right now, but our day to day hasn't changed dramatically, because we are so isolated, and I work from home anyway, and my company hasn't really taken a hit from my day gig. Um, but it's, we've been spending a lot of time outside walking. We live on 10 acres of land, and we're off in the woods quite a bit.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So we've been gardening, getting stuff ready for the garden, and walking the dog a lot. And earlier today, I smell like a delicious mix of like Yankee Candle, cedar, and motor oil and maple syrup because I was cutting down trees earlier, and then I was over at the sugar house doing that kind of stuff. So
That
it's
all sounds
yeah,
very Vermont too.
yeah, this is the time of year where a lot of work gets done, so it's kind of helping to take my mind off of like getting outside and being able to get away into the woods and stuff is really kind of helped out. I guess distance me a bit more from everything that's going on and try to not be on my phone constantly seeing, what's in the news.
Yeah. Have you gotten to catch many live streams that have been going on?
I have. I try to tune into one, at least every day. I think Zach and Jackie did like three in a row that I tuned into all of those ones because I miss those guys a whole bunch. But yeah, I mean, Low Cut Connie, Adam from Low Cut Connie has been doing fantastic ones. If there's one that you should tune into, it should be that. Um,
Agree.
yeah, he's fantastic. I feel like if you just need a pick me up, he's the one to give it to you. Anthony DaCosta, who is a really great songwriter and singer and kind of plays and harmonizes with a bunch of people. He toured with Aoife O'Donovan a number of years ago when she put out a solo record. I've tuned into a couple of his, and yeah, I've tried to see when folks will pop up, just tune in and do my best to toss a couple of bucks to people where I'm able to, because it's a rough time right now, and I'm really hoping that we can come out on the other side with a vast appreciation for what we're missing out on, being able to go to shows and have that connection with folks.
That's a really good point. Knowing that your day to day hasn't changed a whole lot, is there anything that you're doing differently or in addition to what you would have been doing otherwise creatively since all this started?
Yeah, so I guess most notable is, but right before all the kind of craziness hit, I hadn't written a song my own stuff in since like November of 2017 or something like that. And right before all this started happening in the States, I joined a songwriting support group where each week you get a different prompt sent in a Google Drive, and then you have a week to write a song. So we're on week 6 now. So I have I have like two okay songs and four not so great songs as a result of it. But it's gotten me back into the habit of actually writing with a purpose, which has been nice. Um, I've also been I've been teaching myself, or YouTube has been teaching me um, how to use this software called Blender, which is like a 3D animation tool for computer visual effects for films. So I've been slowly trying to, do like about an hour a day of that learning for filmmaking stuff. My wife and I have made a couple of short horror films. I'm kind of a horror nerd, aside from being a music nerd. So we've been trying to get back into that, and hopefully out of this come up with another short film. And yeah, I've been playing a bunch just at home, but I'm kind of missing being able to actually jam with people. So but the guys that I play with have been sending messages back and forth to each other like, "Oh, I'm learning this new fiddle tune, or I'm learning this new tune. We should really play it when we get back together." Um, and the biggest bummer is before we all kind of got put into this quarantine, I was starting a documentary series called Handmade, which is focusing on people that make things with their hands. So either guitar builders, or I had gotten together with James a number of years ago and we had all this footage, but we never did an interview portion. So I kind of pieced it together and tossed that up online as a kind of a trailer of sorts to try to kick it off. But I had a bunch of things lined up with a friend who's a potter, and a friend who does stained glass work, and another friend who built my guitar and is currently building me an octave mandolin. But obviously, you have to get kind of close for shooting and filming those kind of things. So that's all put on hold right now, which is I was really looking forward to it. Just another way to showcase people that are doing really amazing things. So
You're so good at that. I mean, I feel like that's what I know you for, showcasing other people and what they're doing. I think you do such a good job of it. And I remember now that you say that, a couple of years ago, you've done some topical horror shorts. Because I remember there was one around the 2016 election.
yeah, that wasn't actually so that was in the next town over. They have a 48-hour film slam
Oh yeah.
competition. And so you basically have a weekend to create a film, and they give you a bunch of different things. They give you a line of dialogue and a prop you have to use, and things like that. And yeah, so that wasn't supposed to be a horror movie, but it became a real life horror
For
in
sure.
the end. Uh, but yeah, I'm hoping that out of this comes some more creative work. Um, we'll see.
That's good. I think probably the level of pressure to create is probably different for you than a lot of people, because you're not relying on that as a primary source of income, because your day to day is not so affected. So I'm really happy to hear that you're finding these avenues
Yeah.
to keep creating.
Yeah, I feel like that's really tough, and I've seen a lot of people talk about that or struggle with that. It's like, especially folks that have 250 dates a year or are constantly touring. It obviously puts people in a really bad position in terms of being able to make income. But I've seen a couple of folks who are like, "Oh wow, I get a break." Like, why do I have to be creative right now? Why do I have to work on a new record? Why do I have to do a live stream every night? And I think that there's definitely a balance to be struck. Um, I have a lot of fear about, and I think Jesse mentioned something similar when you were talking to him about a fear that, how long is the live stream thing going to be novel, and how long can we sustain that for? And that scares me for a lot of my artist friends. There's a reason why you tour outside of your city, and it's kind of like the live stream has become the city for a
Right.
lot of people. And how do you make it unique and different each time that you do it? I think that obviously artists are creative people and they can come up with ways of doing it, but it is definitely a concern. And I hope that like I said before, I hope that we come out of this with this like huge push and desire to just go see live music when we're able to and support people in person.
I hope so too. And I personally cannot wait. Um, I think that's what I'm most looking forward to, is being able to safely gather again so that we can get together for shows. What is it that you're most looking forward to when things get back to whatever the new normal looks like?
I think it's that. I mean, I'm far more of a, I guess just like hugging my friends would, would be a big one. It's like, it's scary that so many summer festivals are like Telluride just announced that they're going to be canceling. And I'm involved in a festival that happens in August called the Green Mountain Bluegrass and Roots Festival, which is fairly new. It's down in southern Vermont. And, they haven't made a call yet on whether or not it's going to be canceled, but it concerns me because it's such a needed end to the summer and a reprieve from just work and stuff that a lot of people come to this very robust. Like Sam Bush played it last year, and Mandolin Orange has been the headliner 2 years in a row, and like they have these really great names, but it still has this super intimate feel to it,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of what it's like right up my alley. And I do the artist video sessions for them as well the past 2 years, and I think being able to be a fly on the wall and do that kind of work directly with artists is what I'm missing most right now. Um, I hope that sooner than later. So if anyone's out there and they want to shoot some videos, then let's make it happen. And however many weeks from now, we're able to do that.
Yeah. And you do beautiful work. I think anyone who schedules that would be lucky to work with you.
Thanks.
All right. So what is the best way for people to find what you do, to find Redline Roots, that kind of thing? How do they support that during this time, or support the things that you care about the most right now?
I mean, redlineroots.com. It's pretty much anything you want from there. I have my personal website for my music has lapsed because I was in that funk of I'm not a musician anymore kind of a thing. But I do have a Bandcamp still, briancarroll.bandcamp.com. You might, if you Google music and Brian Carroll, you'll probably come up with a slew of Buckethead things, because Buckethead, the guitarist, shares a real name with me.
Wow.
And there's a lot of angry comments on YouTube videos, and they came for like metal shredding, and they end up with sad folk songs, but that's fine, I guess. So yeah, Redline Roots, everything's kind of linked from there. Video series, the old Spruce sessions. There's a tab on the page. We started the guy who does Redline Roots with me, Ken Templeton, now lives in North Carolina, but he and I, we've kind of made this switch of how we want to use this as a platform moving forward. And I think we both kind of felt that in terms of reviews and stuff, we've said all that we can say in most cases. So we love talking to people like this, like you're doing. And we started a podcast. I think we're up to episode 8 or 9 at this point. And so we've been doing that more so lately. The old Spruce session stuff will continue, but all that stuff is on redlineroots.com. And in terms of what I'd say, just go out there on stuff like this. And if you're able to, kick some money to someone, buy their merch, buy artist merch, watch their live streams, give them tips. It's a really difficult time for a lot of people right now. So I hope that if nothing else, this teaches people to be kind to each other and support each other. And yeah, that's really, I mean, that we should be giving money to artists anyway, right? And supporting artists as it is. But I hope that a lot of people maybe who don't share that mentality in the past kind of learn that now, because the world would be a really awful place if we didn't have music and visual art and everything.
Agreed. Well said. So my next person I'm talking to is at 4 p.m. Eastern. That'll be with Ron Benway. He's in Nevada right now. And then at 5 p.m. Eastern, I'll be talking to Kieran Ledwidge. Do you know Kieran?
I don't. No.
Fabulous violinist. He plays with Daphne Martin. He was on tour with Daphne when all this happened. So he went back to Daphne's place in Connecticut to ride it out. And then the Australian government said, all of you who are not in the country have to get home right now. So he's been in quarantine for 2 weeks, and I'll be talking to him at 5 o'clock our time, which is like 7:30 a.m. his time, on his last final day of government enforced quarantine in a hotel somewhere in Sydney. So that'll be the rest of my day, and I'm going to do this every Sunday until we're allowed to leave the house again. So is there anything else you'd like to share before we sign off?
No, just again, I said in the beginning, but thank you for doing this. I think I've really enjoyed all the conversations so far, and I appreciate you having me be involved in it as well. And I hope that I see you soon.
I hope so too, before too long. Thank you for tuning in throughout these weeks, and thank you especially for taking the time today to talk with me.
Yeah, I'll see you, JJ. Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.